Rant. How are you all? I am coming to you via Zoom, and let's wait for this audience to build up. And what I might actually do is actually just put my phone up here, which is going to allow me to have a look at people coming in to the rant. So beautiful. This audience is building up. And we've got a great rant on tonight. I actually think we've got a very important rant on tonight because this is a subject that is going to help a lot of people at the moment, particularly in Melbourne, particularly in Victoria, I should say. I shouldn't be actually just ignoring the rest of Victoria. I know from the SMSs and messages and communications and phone calls I've had from I think maybe 20 real estate agents in Melbourne today. Most of those are, of course, my real estate gym members who just wanted to have a chit chat about, Daniel Andrews' decision to extend the lockdown that was anticipated. And I believe that there is going to be a large number of real estate agents and people working in the property-related industry, as well as everyone else in the country and Victoria, that may get emotionally and mentally impacted by what's happening at the moment. And today's topic, I'm going to have a guest coming in a moment, and we're going to talk about an incredible initiative. In fact, I would probably say the best initiative that I have seen come to the real estate industry, maybe in the time I've been involved in real estate, which is 30, 34, 35 years. And it's very important because I actually know that real estate is highly dependent on people's mental health, because you can be a miserable accountant and still get the job done. But I've got to tell you, it's really, really hard to be in a miserable mood in real estate and still get the job done. It can be really, really hard to actually get out of bed if you're in a spiral of a downward trend in your mental health. But I want to talk to you a little bit about some short fixes before we move on to the real topic. And depression for me was something that I've got to tell you, I would feel envious as someone that's had other illnesses in my life and my close family. I've always felt to myself, like I'd won the not a great birth lottery in terms of illness. And I've always thought to myself, that maybe people that had, anxiety or depression or any of the other, problems that you come under the mental health umbrella, that they were soft. And it wasn't until I was going through a chemotherapy session where I had a fellow patient be told that they had great news and that their PET scan showed there was no evidence of disease, NED. And but that would mean that this guy could actually stop his cancer treatment and actually move on with his life as being considered cured, or at least in remission. But he did say to me that now that that problem's gone, I can face the big one. And I said to him, well, what's bigger than the one that you've just gone through? And he says, depression. I suffer from depression. And, I was thinking to myself that a guy that had just spent 9 months of chemotherapy and radiation treatment should be on cloud nine, but he still was adamant that he saw the world through a dark lens. And he made a very valid point. He said, Tom, he had prostate cancer. He said, Tom, the prostate was sick. There was something that was done to make the prostate better. And I could logically see that there is disease and there is a treatment to get rid of the disease. But when the problem is in fact a part of the body, which is the bit that does the logical thinking, the brain, well, it ain't as straightforward. And that's why for him, this was far bigger a problem. That to me opened up my eyes that there is a group of people, girls and guys, that see life on an ongoing basis with bad lenses. And I just want you to picture this. There's a guy and girl. They're holding hands. They're married. And they're walking along the road. And a big Labrador comes running for them. And what happens is the guy, he freaks. He freaks. He sees this Labrador going for him, and he thinks that this Labrador is going to go off and bite him and attack him. The female, his partner, she rushes to the Labrador wanting to hug it. You see, it's the same event, but there are two different lenses. The lens from the guy who's in fear might be because when he was young, he had an incident where a dog attacked a family member, or that he was educated that big dogs can actually bite you. The bottom line is there's a belief that if you've got a dog running at you, for this guy, that this is fear. For the female, she has a different belief. Her belief is that Labradors are beautiful animals that just want to be patted on and loved when they see a human. I share this story because I want you to understand that we as human beings do look at life through different eyes. And a lot of these beliefs have been shaped when we're young. And I want you to also understand that we have these beliefs going on and we carry with them all our lives. And some of these beliefs I'll just share with you. I mean, there could be someone watching this who's an agent that says, oh, as far as I'm concerned, buyers are liars, and they see the world through those eyes. Or you've got some real estate agents that go into a listing presentation and they say, oh, every vendor just wants the lowest commission, so that's why I go cheap. Or every vendor doesn't want to spend any money in marketing, and that's why I won't talk about it. Here's the deal. When you have a set of beliefs, what you're doing is constantly looking for things that validate them. And psychologists call that the Velcro Teflon effect. The Velcro is that what we do is we have a belief about something, and then what happens is we actually look for things, Velcro, to confirm it. That's sticky. And anything that actually counters that belief, we dismiss. That's the Teflon component that psychologists talk about. And we form these beliefs as kids, and often these beliefs are outdated. And that's why you need to have your beliefs updated. And that what you need to do is to start questioning some of these beliefs if they don't serve you. I want you to know that if you think about a car that goes around in circles and circles and circles with a driver just going in a circular motion, what they do is in the dirt, they create a groove. And that means that each time the car goes around in the dirt, this groove, this pattern that has been formed into the ground means that the car can go around in that circle easier. But it also means that the car to get off that track is harder, because I want you to understand that it's hard to deviate when you've been going down a groove. And I want to tell you that our thought patterns are like the pattern that a car makes going around in circles. And I want you to understand that, to me, there are two things that we often do mentally that I think you need to think about. And I use these two strategies. For me, I'm always mindful of, am I catastrophizing here? Or am I mind reading here? Example, I'm in a text message conversation with someone, and then I send something, and then that other person doesn't respond. And that other person might not respond because they've gone into a listing appointment, or they've actually gone into the gym, or they haven't got their phone with them anymore. So what happens is I start doing mind reading. Oh shit, the reason they're not responding is they're pissed off with what I just said. I actually shouldn't have said that. I must have upset them. And then what happens is I take that belief and story with me. And then 4 hours later, I get a message. And that message is the continuation of the conversation. In fact, there was nothing sinister going on. There wasn't anything that was untoward. It was just simply that that person didn't have their phone with them for those 2 hours. So in a moment, we're going to move on to a more serious subject. And that is when there is anxiety and depression where you spiral into it, which many real estate people are potentially vulnerable at the moment in Victoria because of the prolonged period of time to the changes to their normal routines of their life. But I'm just going to share with you a couple of other things. On a piece of paper, try this exercise. Draw a line, actually in the middle of the page there, half. On the top, call it joy bringers. On the second bottom, put down joy suckers. Joy givers, things that give you joy, right? It could be walking along the beach. It could be doing meditation. It could be talking to your grandkids. Just write out joy givers. It could be listening to a podcast. Then you've got the joy suckers. Joy suckers are the things that suck the joy out of your life. And I'm going to say to you, if you simply do this exercise tonight and you carry this piece of paper with you and you use this as a form of a template to help you create more joy into your life and to reduce things that take joy away from your life, and you carry it with you, you're going to be intentional. You're going to be intentional with actually creating sort of a better experience. And I've got to tell you, often all you want to do, even in bad times, I've got to tell you, even in days where I was sort of hungover from, bendamus, one of the chemicals they were giving me, I've got to tell you, my goal was not to have the best day of my life. My goal was to have a fine day. And a fine day for that day might mean that, hey, I'm going to binge on comedy on Netflix, or I'm going to read a book that I've always wanted to read, but I always say I'm busy, or I'm actually going to ring people that make me happy, right? And it might not be the best day of your life, but it's the best day under those circumstances. And many of you agents in Melbourne need to understand this concept. You make the best day under your circumstances. The other thing I'll say to you is that you'll get addicted to a life when you start having a life that is sort of inspired by joy enablers and joy suckers, right? You'll find that you'll change the way you go about things and you'll schedule things into your diary that will bring you happiness. The second strategy that I'll tell you that I think is really useful is to create a mantra. To create a mantra whenever things are shit. And for those of you watching this in Melbourne, your mantra is very simple. Whenever you get overwhelmed, just remind yourself, this shall pass. For me, my mantra has been in tough times, my current situation is not my final destination. Difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. And the comeback is always bigger than the setback. They're my mantras. So whenever I'm feeling that, shit, that's the mantra that gets me back on track. I also find that scaling is a very useful tool for me. Scaling allows you to actually look at an event not worse than it is, not better than it is, but as it is. Because I think that we've got fallacy thinking a lot of the times. We protect ourselves thinking that the worst is going to happen. And I'm going to say to you that for me, scaling. So when something happens, example, hey, we can't do real estate till October 23rd or whatever the date is, or let's hopefully the REIB, make some progress and is able to bring in something that's a little bit easier. But even if they don't, you turn around and say, hey, so I'm in lockdown till October 23. How big's that a problem? Oh, Tom, it's disaster. Well, hang on a second. Let's scale it out of 10. 10 out of 10 is your kid is being told it's got 8 weeks to live. They're only 12 years of age. That's a 10 out of 10 problem. So now tell me, let's scale it there. What is an October 23 lockdown on a scale of 10 when you now have been able to grade it? So scaling to me is a very useful technique, and psychologists actually use that a lot when they're dealing with their clients, patients. The next thing is visualization. Visualizing things the way you want them to go versus the way you don't want them to go, right? And I've got to tell you, I use visualization all the time, whether I'm, envisaging how a webinar is going to go, how a conference is going to go that I'm speaking at, envisaging how a conversation will go. I choose to have a movie that goes in my head that will serve me, not hurt me. So a couple of other things that have helped me with my own mental health is Bikram yoga, which to me is, I only do it for the psychological effect. I'm doing 3 times a week now, meditation that comes with it. Gratitude, thankfulness, some people call it. Exercise, I find that exercise, the chemicals that come out of exercise. But I've got to tell you, there are times when you can do everything, but you're still in a rut. And sometimes the rut seems to get worse and worse. And to the extreme, people think about committing suicide. Other times they just struggle getting out of bed. Because I've been quite vulnerable and because I've got such a large audience, I think that people feel comfortable contacting me when they are actually feeling shit. So I actually know that behind those perfect Insta-like lives that people show on social media, I actually know that there are often many people that are suffering quiet lives of silent desperation. And I'm very pleased to let you know that in the industry that I've been working, we now look like there is going to be something that's going to help people that are not at the sad level, right? This is more for people that, hey, it's a lot worse than that, and it's been happening for a period of time. And Chris Hanley, who's a client, but more closer as a friend, is a guy that I talk to on the phone on a regular basis. He's a contributor to my real estate community and the real estate gym. And Susan, I'm going to ask you to bring Chris Hanley into the conversation now, because he's going to be kind enough to share with us some really great information. And that information is, there he is there. I'm just going to open that up there. So good evening, Chris Hanley from Byron Bay in that beautiful back setting. He's got those books there. By the way, that backdrop, which is not a virtual background, a real background, suits you, because when I think of Chris Hanley, I do think of books.
How are you, Tom?
I'm very well. I'm very well. I love it when you. I love it when you've. There you go. Just move that iPad back in there to.
I'm good.
There
we go. Yeah. Very good, Tom.
So I love it. I love it, Chris, when you send me occasionally. You sent one yesterday. You send me a quote out of a book or a white paper or a report that's been written. Chris, firstly, can I just say, mate, is whilst there's a lot of people that have been suffering with the COVID-19. There have been a lot of other businesses, both in real estate and outside of real estate, that have had amazing times. And I think it would be remiss not to actually acknowledge that you guys have had an incredible run.
We have, Tom. We're very lucky. We live in a beautiful part of the world. I'm blessed with a great team of people. Our COVID has been traumatic at the start, like everybody else's, but then people from all over the country and even some from other parts of the world decided that they felt safe, or they felt our part of the world was a sanctuary. So they proceeded to rent and buy property from us. And I feel a little guilty sometimes even bringing this up, but I want to say tonight a hello to all the people in Melbourne. And I'm sad about the news today. I really am, but I like Tom. I think it's a tunnel, not a wall, and I hope it ends earlier. But yeah, Tom, we've had our winter's been strong for us up here, and as I said, our team have worked really hard, particularly our property managers. I think for all of us in real estate, they've been the doctors and nurses of our profession, and they've had such a difficult time. Some of them young people, have never seen anything like this. But yeah, we've had a decent winter, Tom, in our business.
Now, Chris, while you're off camera, you were listening in. I was talking about, some mental techniques that I use in my life. But I remember you ringing me up about 6 months ago, or 8 months ago, I think it was. It would have been late last year, and you said, "Can I ask you, do you suffer from depression or mental health issues?" And I said, "No, I don't." But I said, "I can tell you, I talk to a lot of people that do." Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah,
Yeah,
vividly. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, Chris, I want to make the distinction because we all have, shit days or a shit couple of days, and that's quite different to a systemic pattern of long-term, depression or anxiety, and to the point where it starts actually affecting your everyday life at work and at family, and in extreme cases, suicide. Today, by coincidence, we're doing this rant. I mean, the media in New South Wales, the Telegraph, ran very big stories on suicide clusters in Kiama, 7 in 7 weeks. Private school girls, which we actually know, one of the family members of one of the suicides of girls. I mean, that's devastating. So we know at the extreme suicide, and we know that real estate agents, for lots of reasons, mainly one of them that it's really easy not to eat. If you don't make sales, you can't eat. And then you've got this economic factor. You've got, this Instagram, Facebook world that actually says, hey, this is what your competitor's doing. So automatically you're making this comparison that shows that you're shit and they're good. And we often know that those fake Insta-like lives are not a true reflection of what agents are doing anyway. But Chris, I'm pumped about this because you have been working with a group of people in a very collaborative way. And that to me is one of the things that you said was great. You feel like the real estate agents have worked together to develop an app, which I'm curious to find out. And it's also linked to an event which was cancelled called Rise that was happening in Melbourne, but I believe you've got a virtual event. But can I just ask you, what is the app? What is it?
The app is a number of things, Tom. It's the latest technology. It is on our phones. It is a way to manage our mental health and the stresses, whether they're exercise, whether they're financial, around our mental health. It is a way to get help. It's a triage. And for those who want a better way to describe triage, in one click, it's a way to get to the services. Australia, and I've got to say, Tom, so anybody out here doesn't think I'm an expert in this, I'm not. I'm neither a psychologist or a doctor. My learning of this whole topic has come about by talking to learned people, including the people that helped us build the app. But in essence, it's a triage because Australia has the best mental health support services in the world, the best. Our governments have been generous before COVID and since and during COVID with large funds. But for a lot of people, getting to those services, finding where they need to go, is sometimes as much an issue as it is whether the services actually exist. So the app, and I need to explain a little bit about the origins of the app, but Tom, if you'll allow me, and where the app came from. We built it, and by when I say
who's we, Chris? Who's we?
Good. We is a cooperative, a collective of agents, but the we I'm referring to here is real estate agents in New Zealand and all throughout Australia. We came together as focus groups, and the focus groups were organised, and they were property managers, trainees, CEOs. We started in Melbourne last year, around the time I talked to you. We had an ideation, or a group of people came together for a very intensive day where the app builders, and that company's called Utility Creative, where the app builders had the CEO of some of the biggest companies in Australia, and they had trainees in the room and property managers and admin people, and some of the best agents in the country were all in that first session. And then after that, Tom, we took different versions of the app to focus groups in Queensland, right down through New South Wales, in the city and in regional areas, in my own town. Then we went to the parts of the city. Then we went to the South Coast. Then we went to Victoria. Then we went across to New Zealand. And we had a couple of hundred people involved in those focus groups. So the we, from the start until now of the building of the app, the information, what the app builder wanted to do was to understand the stresses and the lives of a typical person who works in our industry. And then they would build the app around the information they got from that. Now, the second part of the we question is if you want to know who the we people are that have been involved in the building of the app and the whole project to where it's up to now, well, you're one of them, as is John Cunningham and Shannon Whitney and Megan Jaffe and Nick Dowling and James Keenan and Madeline Kennedy and James Redfern and Talia Tomolino and Sarah Bell, who just had a baby this week, for those of you who don't know. And I could go on and rattle off a lot more significant people. Nick West, the people from O'Brien's, Darren Hutchins and all his team. So there's some of the people who've been involved in the initiative and in the development of the app.
Okay. Now, Chris, can I ask you, the app is the word triage. I know what it is because,
yeah.
Well, there was a time when I didn't know what it was, and I think we should explain that, because there could be people that are saying, "What's that mean?"
In essence, and this is again, I'm a layman here, but my understanding is that within your phone, you will put information into your phone, and it will send you or give you what it is that you need. So, Tom, my understanding is that in the hospital you get assessed. When you go into ICU or into a hospital, you're assessed by experts. The phone attempts to do that and will try and send you off to whether it's Beyond Blue or to whether it's a part of the phone that has a strategy to manage the particular anxiety or the feelings that you're having. And during the building of the app, for example, we went back, because financial stresses, for example, became so difficult for a lot of people, and this was before the second lockdown in Victoria, we went back in and developed another section of the app to do with all of the stresses that you get from financial pressures, and we even included things like budgeting in there. So people who aren't good at that, for example, it shows them how to do that within the app, and they'll be able to manage their finances in a better way, which will hopefully reduce the stresses in their life.
Now, Chris, when will the app be available?
We finished the building of the app, Tom. We took a decision at the start of COVID. As you mentioned, we were going to have a conference at the end of the year. And the app was just not a byproduct of it, but we needed with RISE, the conference, to decide on what we would put money into if we had a surplus. We finished the building of the app. So what happens with the app now, Tom, is that all the people who've been involved in the focus groups will get the first version in about 10 days' time, and they will use it for a while, up until the 6th of October, when we will give the app, and that is the right word, we will give the app to all of the people who buy a ticket to a virtual conference that we've just built in the last few weeks called RiseX. That is on the 6th of October. And everyone who buys a ticket, it's $35 plus GST. Everyone who buys a ticket will get the app, and they'll get it for free, Tom. And that's been our objective since day one, to give it to people for free. If people aren't at that conference, can't buy a ticket, then myself and James Keenan, the CEO of Nelson Alexander, will liaise and with the CEOs of other groups, networks and so on, and we will speak with them and work out a way for their people to have the app as well.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot of the funding of the app is hopefully going to be subsidised by the $35 ticket sale?
No. No and yes. And by that I mean, without sounding silly, we've got a major partner who generously has joined us. Domain has come on board, and the $35 per person is primarily to fund the conference. You don't get a lot of bang for your buck at $35 a ticket. Tom, you know that better than me. The app costs a lot more than that to build, a lot more, but that's just to cover our costs for the conference. And anyone who has a Rise ticket for the conference, the big conference, they're also getting to come for free, Tom. And there's well over 1,000 of those people. So if anyone's out there and they've already got a Rise ticket, they'll be pretty happy.
When's Rise Digital going to be on?
The 6th of October, between 9 and 12. And there'll even be a special session for all the CEOs and the leaders there. Jessica Rowe is one of the speakers. Michael Carr-Gregg. There's a couple of great sessions there with sales and property management. And then Jeff Kennett is going to launch the app. The government of New South Wales and the government of Victoria have both been very supportive of this process. Tom, there's not too many professions in the middle of COVID that have got the level of cooperation to be able to build something. And there's an awful lot of people in our industry. It's one of the biggest employers in the country. So the governments have been very supportive of us since we started this process, because I expect they'd like to see other professions do the same.
Okay, so I'm getting the impression, Chris, that the intention is that the app is going to be made available for people that need it at no cost at some point.
Correct. So everyone who is at RiseX, which we already assume from our conversation with people, a number of thousands of people there, they will get it on the day. They'll download it on the day, as you do when you go to other events and there's an app. But what we will then do is liaise with the other major networks, the ones that won't be at this conference, for example, or the ones that might want more detail, and we will work out a way for them to do launches and give the app to their people. The only cost to any organisation listening here, you won't pay for the app. Our purpose has been to give it to the profession for free. The only cost is, like with all apps, you need to have a contract each year, a maintenance contract for your bugs and bits and pieces, and we'll share that amongst the entire industry. There won't be a large cost to anybody after that. And we'll also have, if there's little offices and they're not part of networks, they'll all be included. We'll work out a very cheap rate for all of those people, but the app is free.
Okay. And we're not talking about an app here that has and to allay some people, because I know that some people are going to turn around and say, oh, but this might be an app that actually might end up broadening its scope and, start offering some of the other, services that we expect our real estate companies to be doing. This is purely a mental health initiative, and it is not one to make a profit.
There's no profit in this, Tom, I can assure you.
Yeah.
This is our industry, and I love it. I've been in it for 40 years. But if anyone's out there thinking there's any dough in this for anybody, I can assure you there's not. This is completely us cooperating to do something that's just the right thing. And if you ask me, why did we do it? Of course we can. Like, at the end of the day, we were able to get all these people together. We found the best people. And for those of you, the company we've used called Utility Creative are run by an amazing guy called David Stanley. And to give you an idea, he built the apps for the Australian, New Zealand and Canadian police forces. And that app is called Equip. So we've got the best. These people really know what they're doing. They've been fabulous to work with. They've helped us through the whole process. But I want to make the point, we didn't go and get anybody else's app. We, being the industry, built this ourselves by using our information, our focus groups, and the latest technology, and we put it all together with the help of Utility Creative.
Okay, gold. And to everyone that's watching this here, I got to tell you, I want to let you be super, super clear. My main involvement in this is to get it into the hands of as many agents as possible. I have no financial interest, and I think Chris is being extremely kind to when he says, "Oh, Tom was involved in it." My involvement has been, I mean, I've got the biggest audience in real estate that consume my content by email or by social media video. And I find it's an obligation because, Chris, one of my own values is to help reduce suffering. I mean, someone said to me the other day, oh, Tom, I was helping out a guy, and he said to me, oh, Tom, there's no need for you to do that for me. It's okay. I said, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for myself, because I still find that I get a good feeling when I'm contributing to something that is either going to take some pain away from someone or make things bearable. You know, sometimes it's not, to have an incredible life. It's to make something bearable, and I get a pleasure out of it. And I know that you get a pleasure. You spend a lot of your time into causes that you feel can impact a lot of people, with you not even being part of it after the event. And I can picture that this is something that matters to you a lot, because real estate's been your life for 40 years. Can I ask you, what was most exciting about this project?
I'll tell you, I've got a few things, but working with people, James Keenan, Kate Strickland, James Redfern, Nick Dowling, all these people, John Cunningham. In real estate, you don't get to do that a lot. So the first thing is working with people who are passionate, and that has been a great thing. I think the second thing for me, Tom, is learning. I've had to learn a great deal about all of these things. I think the third thing, and most importantly, it's part of, but not the only piece of the puzzle. If you're sitting out here listening to Tom and I talk tonight, the app won't cure depression or any of those things. It'll help people manage their lives and hopefully have a better life and lead them to experts who will. But it's the first part. And if we get this up and running, and I want to repeat, we've built it, so it will be. Then the next part we've envisioned will be to raise the funds and to go out into the workplaces in our profession and help the bosses and the staff set up safer workplaces, to educate people, so when we went out talking to people to find out what we could do to help in this space, the app is one part of a big picture, and it won't fix everything, but it's a place to start. We thought everyone's got a phone. That's what we deal with, and also so everybody understands the version of an app we've built. All the information stays on the app. That means no one else will have any involvement in it. The information doesn't go to anywhere else. We've built that type of version, so it's not web-based. It's on your phone. But they're the things, Tom, that I was excited about being part of this.
What's the Chris, for the event on the 6th of October? It's rise.com.au, is it?
No, I'm the worst person to ask those questions. I just put Rise 2020 in there, and it takes you to the original Rise conference, and then it splits into two. Okay. It's got Rise X. Rise X 2020 will get you there as well.
Rise X 2020 in the Google search bar will get you there, and you'll get access to it straight away. But the main thing is, guys and girls, as you're watching this here, I mean, this is a great initiative. By the way, Chris, well done to you and to those great people that you're collaborating with. And I've got to tell you, collaboration is something that there has been a lot of potential there for real estate to do. And, like I'm looking at right now with what's happening in Melbourne, right? I'm thinking to myself, it would be so good to have, bodies that are both from a national and state level that represent real estate work collaboratively, because they'd have far more punch in the conversation from a political a point of view. I mean, I just see the power that NAR has got in the States. You know, they really have strong influence there. And what you guys have done is sort of said, hang on a second, I'm First National, you're Ray White, you're Marshall White, you're O'Brien's, you're that. Hey, let's take our masks off for a moment. We have a problem with our people. Our people here have some issues. Some of those issues are happening and are affecting their lives in and out of work. Let's do something about it. And you've done
Tom,
that. Yeah.
Tom, can I just let me talk to that last point? I think the intentions of a lot of people in our profession, from the CEOs down, for a long time has been to collaborate and cooperate. But I don't think we've found the vehicle. And I think when we go to politicians, they just feel that we're interested in our commissions. I think the way to make change, and we are one of the biggest employers in the country, people's home security, tenants or buyers, in the last 6 or 7 months has been the single biggest concern for so many people. But we sit outside in most states of Australia, the decision-making sandboxes. We are not in those sandboxes. And we are not in there because, in my view, people don't see us acting collaboratively on issues that aren't about commission. And if we can find some more ways to work on whatever they are. Now, I'll give you an example. If another area we should be leading is in housing affordability, social housing in those areas. We know all about housing. We are experts, but we don't get called into so many areas. Real estate agents know more about what people think and feel about living inside apartments and houses than anybody else. But we're not involved in those conversations. Now,
I agree with you, Chris, so much, like to the point now that I've had, like right now, I know if we did have that influence, someone would have been able to have spoken to Daniel Andrews or his team and say, hey, listen, you need to understand this. What happens is we've got a vendor that has sold their house. They need to move into another home. We have a way that this can be done, and that can be done where they're going to have this sanitizer. They're going to come and look at a property. There's going to be a social distancing. It's going to be 50 times better than what you're seeing at the beach at St. Kilda on the weekend, right?
Yes,
50 times better than the thousands are congregating there. But I just think that we haven't had the platform to have that conversation. And I'm not taking pleas. I don't want anyone to turn around and say, oh, but we got the REI. They do a superb job. But what you need to often do is to do a job where it's so hard that they can't ignore you, And I'm not sure that that's happened in this case because, man, the truth is there are tenants and landlords and buyers and sellers right now that you could probably get to actually do what needs to get done without impacting or potentially spreading COVID.
100%. And I think everybody out there realizes what you're saying is right. The weird thing for everybody out there is that I want to go back and repeat, people's intentions in our profession are really good. And you asked me, what are the best things out of this? I'll tell you what the other thing is, and it relates to this. I've had hundreds, thousands of conversations. People have told me things in the last year, some of their own private battles, and I feel privileged. But when you have a conversation about something that affects us all, you realise from that people want to do good things, but you're right, we don't have the vehicle. And I want to quickly share a story with you, a gift of COVID in this space. A young woman I know very well and who works in Melbourne told me a story in the first couple of months of COVID, and I've never forgotten this. She said to me, I've never understood anxiety or mental health or depression because I just didn't get it. She said, my whole life has been blessed. I've had a good life. And she did had a good life. Anyway, her gift for COVID, and I think there's a lot of people in our profession now the same, was that first couple of months, she was scared all the time of COVID for the first time in her life. And she realised that the fear running through her veins was the same fear that runs through anxious people's veins every other day. You know what I mean? So having this conversation for the last year, and that's how long I've been having it with people, has made me believe that there's a lot of other issues that we should be having conversations about amongst ourselves, find a vehicle, as you said, and do some other good things, because the intention is there, but we just don't know how to do it.
Well said, Chris. And I have the same view as you, Chris. I actually think that the most of the people that I deal with in real estate are people that care, are people that would put the best interest of a client ahead of a fee. Don't get me wrong, there's people that would do the opposite, but I'm saying that most of the ones that I come across, still get an incredible feeling knowing that a vendor hugs them and says thank you. They still find that one of the most exhilarating parts of real estate, far more than their share of when the release of the commission hits their account, right? So I know that that's the case. I also know that I have neighbors that live in my street, and I know that the greater population might not have that view. They have a view that real estate agents are fundamentally driven by a dollar and will say and do things to self-interest themselves. So I agree that this can be it's COVID clarity. It's COVID clarity. This opportunity that we can just transform the way that the industry is viewed by you saying some of the things that you said. Hey, mental health's one, social and affordable housing, liaising with the government. I mean, we've got so much information that we know before everyone else, right? That is knowledge, and we know the power comes from having high level knowledge. Anyway, Chris, I want to thank you so much. Again, guys and girls, because I don't want to get hit up by, I get a lot of people say, oh, put me on the Sunday night rant. This thing here is a non-for-profit. This thing here is to help reduce suffering. This thing here matters. I can't tell you the amount of times I have had people contact me that I think that they're sort of days away from committing suicide. These are people that have actually said it. I mean, there's got to be a heap of people that just don't say it. So there are people that are silently suffering quiet lives of desperation that very soon, probably November, are going to be able to go onto an app. And what it's going to do is it's going to give them a shortcut anonymously without freaking out too much to actually get you to the right people at the right time. And that's what I'm so happy about. Anyway, Chris, thank you so much. Lucky man, Byron Bay. Jesus.
See you, Tom. Thank you.
Guys, share the rant, because I think this one's important, actually. Share the rant. And if you are going through a shit time, let me tell you, good belief to have, what's coming is better than what's gone.
See you, Tom.